The stars above Earth had forgotten her name. Now, the planet was a graveyard, silent and broken. Once full of life, full of noise, full of humans, now only dust, ash, and ruins covered the land. No cities remained, no voices spoke, only cold. Wind danced through what was left of the Earth's past, but beneath that dust, under the cracked surface of old mountains, something ancient slept. Something powerful, something human, and very dangerous. A group of alien scavengers arrived on Earth. Their small ship, covered in dents and rust, landed in the Andes Mountains. They weren't soldiers. They weren't scientists. They were simple scrappers looking for old tech to sell. They walked over cracked stones and dead trees, speaking in their sharp alien language. One of them held a scanner, blinking fast, showing energy signals deep underground. They followed the signal to a hidden metal door, half buried under years of dirt and broken rock. The youngest scavenger, a four-eyed creature named Vico, touched the door with shaking hands. "It's still warm," he said nervously. "Something's alive in there." The others laughed, thinking he was just scared. They opened the old door, forcing it open with tools and heat cutters. As it creaked open, dust exploded out and warm air rushed past them. Inside was darkness, deep and quiet. They turned on lights and slowly stepped into the long hallway below the mountain. The walls were covered with faded symbols of Earth's old defense forces, human letters they couldn't read, and weapons too advanced for their minds. But the signal was close just ahead, behind another thick metal door. They pushed it open, and what they saw stopped them cold. There, in the center of a circular room, was a large metallic coffin. It was black, smooth, and glowing slightly with blue lines running across it. All around the coffin were holograms frozen in time images of war, space, fire, and a single human face. Vico stepped forward, his breath caught in his throat. He looked at the face inside the glass top of the coffin. A human man, eyes closed, skin pale, but untouched by time. His body was covered in a strange battlesuit, cracked and burnt, but still shining with power. One of the scavengers laughed. "Looks like a sleeping relic. Let's take his armor." But the moment they touched the glass, everything changed. The room pulsed with blue light. Loud alarms echoed through the hall, shaking the walls. The coffin began to hum, and the blue lines turned red. Energy burst out, knocking the scavengers to the ground, and then he opened his eyes. Bright, glowing blue eyes. He didn't move right away, just stared up at the ceiling, breathing slowly, as if waking from a long, deep nightmare. Then he sat up, his movements slow, but full of strength. He looked around, confused, hurt, angry. "Where am I?" he said softly, his voice rough from silence. The scavengers backed away, frozen, terrified. He looked at them, aliens, strangers, none of them human, his fists clenched slowly, his body shaking. "What year is this?" he asked. But no one answered. He stood up, tall and still strong. Though his suit sparked and smoked, the guardian of Earth had awakened. And he was not happy. One of the aliens tried to speak, but the guardian ignored him. He walked past them, toward a large console in the back of the chamber. With one touch of his hand, the machines lit up, showing old recordings. A voice filled the room. It was a child's voice. "Daddy, please come home soon." The guardian's face broke. His jaw clenched tight. He watched the image of his daughter frozen in time. Still so young, still waiting. Outside the mountain, the sky began to change. In deep space, something else woke up. Something dark. A signal had been sent the moment the coffin opened. The darkness, an ancient enemy of Earth, felt it. And across the stars, they turned toward Earth once again. One of the scavengers finally found his voice. Who are you?" he asked. The guardian turned to him slowly, his eyes glowing brighter. "I was Earth's final defense," he said, "and I should not be awake." He walked past them, out of the vault and into the ruined world above. The wind hit his face as he stepped. Onto the surface, he looked around, seeing the bones of a fallen world. Skyscrapers turned to dust, cities erased by time. No signs of life anywhere. But then he saw a small flower growing between two broken stones. He knelt, touching it gently, and a tear slid down his cheek. "This is still my planet," he whispered behind him. The scavengers stood in silence, unsure if they should run or follow. The Guardian didn't look back. He stared at the dark sky above. Where stars no longer shined bright, he could feel something terrible was coming, and he was the only one left to stop it from far away. A fleet of black ships began to move. The darkness had heard the call, and it was coming fast. The Guardian took a deep breath and clenched his fists. He wasn't ready yet, but he would be. Earth would not fall again, not while he stood on its soil, not while he remembered. The stars above Neptune shimmered like ice, far away from Earth's broken silence. Floating in the shadow of the blue planet was something most people had forgotten: a satellite. It looked like space junk, covered in scratches and burn marks from old battles, but deep inside, it was still alive. And when the Guardian awakened on Earth, it felt it. The satellite blinked, power returning after hundreds of years of sleep. It scanned the stars, then sent a signal, fast and sharp. The message was short but powerful: Project Sentinel online. The message raced through dead space, bouncing between broken satellites, forgotten beacons, and hidden outposts in another part of the galaxy, far from any major planet. A small station orbited a dying star. It was quiet there, home to only a few survivors: old tired humans, ex-soldiers, and half-machine outcasts. They lived in silence, waiting to die. One of them, a woman with metal arms and tired eyes, was sharpening her blade when the signal hit. Her communicator sparked and crackled, then spoke. "He's awake." She dropped the blade, her hands shaking. "Impossible," she whispered. "He died with Earth, all across the galaxy." Others like her received the same signal. Men and women who once followed the Guardian, now scattered, broken, forgotten. Some cried, others screamed. Many didn't believe it, but one by one, they began to move. Old ships powered up again, dusty weapons cleaned, coordinates locked onto one place: Earth. Meanwhile, the Guardian walked through the ruins of Earth's last defense bunker. He moved slowly, touching the walls, remembering every scar and every name carved into the stone. This was where he had made his final stand. He remembered the screams, the fire, the enemy tearing through the defenses, and he remembered making the choice to seal himself inside the vault. Alone, he thought he had failed, but something had kept him alive. He didn't know why, not yet. He found an old terminal, broken, but still humming. He placed his hand on it, and the screen blinked. Holograms appeared, images from before the fall. Soldiers standing beside him, ships flying into battle, Earth still green and alive. And then, a recording played. A child's voice, soft and sweet, filled the room. "Hi, Daddy," she said. "I hope you're okay. Mommy says you're protecting all of us." The Guardian's breath caught in his throat. The image showed a little girl with dark curly hair, holding a stuffed animal. "I miss you, Daddy. Come back soon." Then the screen went black. He fell to his knees, eyes closed tight, fists clenched. So much time had passed, and he didn't even know if she was alive. But he had one reason now, one fire left inside: him find her and protect Earth again. Outside, the group of alien scavengers were arguing. Some wanted to leave, scared of what they had woken up. Others wanted to follow him, maybe even learn from him. Vico, the youngest, said nothing. He stared at the bunker entrance, then slowly walked toward it, curiosity burning inside him. He followed the Guardian into the depths of the ruins. He watched as the Guardian stood before a massive wall covered in weapons. He pulled one down, a long rifle with strange wires and glowing parts. He tested the weight, nodded, then moved on to the next. One by one, he rebuilt his arsenal, using gears so advanced that Vico couldn't understand it. The Guardian finally turned to him. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "I just wanted to know who you are," Vico replied. The Guardian looked down at him, eyes tired but steady. "I'm the last Guardian of Earth," he said. "And if I'm awake, that means something terrible is coming." High above the planet, in the cold of deep space, something stirred. The signal from Earth had reached beyond the stars and to places filled with darkness. There, inside a massive floating fortress, something opened its eyes. It was not a creature of flesh, but a shadow wrapped in armor. Its body pulsed with black energy, and its voice was like metal scraping against bone. "Earth breathes again," it said, "and so does he." The darkness had waited for this moment. They had not destroyed Earth completely. They had left it to rot, to break, to disappear in time. But they had always feared one thing: that the Guardian might return. The fortress began to move, dragging a fleet of death ships behind it. Each one carried weapons strong enough to erase cities. At the center of it all sat the commander of the darkness, its face hidden behind black glass. "Send the scouts," it ordered. "Confirm the Guardian lives. And if he does," the second voice hissed, "bring me his heart." Back on Earth, the Guardian stared at the stars. He could feel it, something coming, something old and full of hate. He looked at Vico and said quietly, "If you stay here, you'll die." Vico didn't move. "I want to help," he said. "You saved me when the drones attacked." The Guardian didn't answer right away. He picked up a device and placed it on Vico's chest, a shield generator. "Stay behind me then," he said, "and don't slow me down." The skies above Earth began to flicker with strange light. Something was entering the atmosphere, fast and deadly. The Guardian turned away from the stars and walked toward the edge of the bunker. His armor buzzed with energy, his steps strong again. Vico followed closely behind, eyes wide, heart pounding. They didn't speak because they both knew this was only the beginning, and far above them, the first scout ship of the darkness broke through the clouds. Its eyes locked on one target, the man who wasn't supposed to wake up. Far away from Earth, inside a bright and cold space station, alarms began to scream. Screens flashed red, warning messages blinked fast. Soldiers and officers, alien and human alike, stared at the impossible message repeating over and over: Project Sentinel. Online, some of the younger officers didn't know what that meant. But the older ones did, and their faces turned pale. Whispers spread through the station like fire. "He's awake," someone said. "That's not possible." Another replied, "He was declared dead 300 years ago." In a high-security room deep inside the station, a secret council had gathered. 5 powerful alien leaders, each from a different species, sat in silence. A 6th screen flickered, unshowing a shadowed figure. Cold and sharp, they all spoke. In different voices, but the message was the same. If the Guardian of Earth has returned, we must act before he remembers what he is. They had worked hard to erase him from history. They had buried the truth about Earth's fall, hiding it behind lies and fake reports. The Guardian had once led armies, had once stood against impossible odds. If he returned, things would change again, and the balance of power would break back on Earth. The Guardian walked through the ruins of an old communication tower. Vico followed close behind, still nervous but curious. They climbed broken stairs, stepping over rubble, moving toward the top floor. The Guardian found a half-working console covered in dust. He wiped it clean with his hand, revealing a cracked display. "I need to send a message," he said softly. "Who will hear you?" Vico asked. The Guardian didn't answer. Just connected wires and activated the system. It sparked to life. Showing Earth's orbit and nearby satellites, he typed in a code old, forgotten human code and pressed send. The message traveled fast. Bouncing through ancient human networks that still lived in the shadows, it reached hidden satellites, underground bunkers, and abandoned relay stations. The signal said just one thing: Earth needs its people. Come home, across the stars. Humans who had once been part of Earth's last defense heard the call. A man with a cybernetic eye dropped his drink and stared at his old badge. A woman living alone in an asteroid cave pulled out a dusty battlesuit. Children of soldiers raised on stories of the Guardian looked to the stars with wide eyes, and a few started gathering their old crews, ready to return, but not everyone was happy. In a distant corner of the galaxy, inside a floating fortress made of black stone and metal, the commander of the darkness stood tall. The walls around him showed a glowing image of Earth. His sharp fingers tapped on a screen. Zooming in on the signal's source, he's calling them back. The commander growled. Another voice behind him hissed. "Shall we destroy the planet again?" "No," the commander said coldly. "Not yet. We send a message first." Back on Earth, the Guardian walked deeper into the ruins of a human bunker. He stepped into a small room with a sealed chamber. Inside, a glowing blue cryopod sat in silence. He touched the glass and looked in. There was a child inside. Small and peaceful. It was his daughter, frozen in time, alive but asleep. Vico gasped. "Is she human?" The Guardian nodded slowly. "She's my daughter," he said, his voice full of sadness. "I placed her here before the final battle. I never thought I'd see her again. The power in the pod was weak, blinking red. If he didn't find a way to recharge it soon, she would die." He started fixing the wires, connecting battery packs, and adjusting the system. Vico helped as much as he could, handing tools, staying quiet. Then, the ground shook. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the lights flickered. They rushed outside and looked at the sky. A dark ship was descending, sharp, silent, and fast. It was a scout from the darkness, sent to confirm what they already feared. The ship landed in the distance, kicking up clouds of smoke. From it stepped a tall figure made of black metal, its face hidden behind a cracked mask. It scanned the area, its voice deep and mechanical. "Target, Guardian of Earth." The Guardian pushed Vico behind a wall. "Stay here," he said. "This is not your fight." But Vico didn't move. The Guardian walked forward. Stepping into the open, facing the enemy, the wind blew his hair back, and his battlesuit buzzed with energy. The scout raised its arm, and energy blasts fired toward him. But the Guardian moved fast, too fast. He rolled to the side, picked up a broken weapon from the ground, and returned fire. Explosions shook the land as both figures clashed. Light and shadow colliding. The scout was strong, fast, and ruthless. But the Guardian was something else. He fought not just with skill, but with purpose, with every blow. He remembered why he was still alive. He remembered Earth, the people who trusted him, the promise to protect his daughter. The battle ended with one final strike. The Guardian leaped into the air and drove his blade deep into the scout's chest. It sparked, screamed, then fell to the ground. Dead, Vico ran to him. Amazed. You're like a legend," he whispered. The Guardian looked at the burning remains of the scout. "This is just the beginning," he said. He turned back to the cryopod chamber. There wasn't much time, more would come, but now he was sure of one thing: he wasn't alone anymore, and the stars above were watching again. The sky above Earth turned gray with smoke. Fire rose in the distance where the scout ship had fallen. The ground was still shaking from the battle, and the smell of burning metal filled the air. The Guardian stood still, staring at the wreckage. Breathing heavy, the fight was over. But he knew this was only the first wave. Vico stood beside him, his 4 eyes wide with fear and amazement. "You beat that thing," he said, almost whispering. The Guardian didn't answer. He was already thinking ahead, already planning, already calculating if the darkness had sent a scout. Others would follow soon. They wouldn't come alone. He turned toward the mountain base again. "I need to finish the repairs," he said. Vico followed without question, now trusting him completely. They entered the old bunker and walked quickly toward the cryopod chamber. Inside, the lights above the pod were flickering. The small form of the Guardian's daughter still lay motionless. Frozen inside, the Guardian touched the glass softly. Her skin was pale, her hair dark like his, and she looked exactly the same as the day he left her. He opened a panel on the side of the pod and connected more power lines. The battery from the fallen scout ship had been salvaged. Its energy was strange and dark, but it might be enough to keep the pod alive until he could find something better. Vico watched silently as the Guardian worked with calm, precise hands. "What's her name?" Vico finally asked. The Guardian paused, then said softly, "Lyra. She was just a child when I sealed her in there." Vico looked at her face through the glass. "She looks like she's dreaming." He said. The Guardian stood up, wiped his hands, and stared at the blinking screen above the pod. Green light. She was stable, for now. But they didn't have much time. The power was enough for a few more days at best. Suddenly, a strange, buzzing sound echoed through the hallway. The Guardian moved fast, pulling Vico behind a wall and lifting his weapon out in the open space of the corridor. 3 hovering machines entered, sleek, black, and silent. Scout drones, smaller than the one from before, but fast and deadly. They had followed the last signal, and now they were searching. The Guardian didn't wait. He raised his rifle and fired clean. Powerful shots that destroyed 2 drones in seconds. But the third one moved fast and zipped through a broken vent, escaping deeper into the ruins. The Guardian cursed under his breath. "It's calling." "In a strike," he said. Vico's eyes widened. "They know exactly where we are now." The Guardian turned to the pod, grabbed it by its metal handles, and lifted it onto a repulsor sled. "We're leaving," he said. "But where?" Vico asked. "There's a hidden transport tunnel under the mountain." The Guardian replied, "It leads to an old Earth defense site. Maybe there's power there." They moved fast, the Guardian pushing the sled, while Vico carried a light pack filled with tools. The tunnel was dark and filled with echoes. Strange animal sounds could be heard in the distance. Old Earth wasn't completely dead. Some creatures had survived in the shadows. As they walked, Vico asked, "Why did they want you dead so badly?" The Guardian didn't speak for a while, then finally said, "Because I reminded them what humans were." He looked ahead, eyes glowing in the dim light. "They couldn't beat us in strength, so they broke us from inside, turned our allies against us, erased our name." They reached a metal door sealed tight with old security codes. The Guardian pressed his hand on the scanner. It blinked. "Red access denied." He sighed, then ripped the panel off the wall and rewired the power manually. Sparks flew, and with a loud hiss, the door slid open. Behind it was a huge underground garage filled with old vehicles, armor, and weapon crates covered in dust. The Guardian smiled for the first time. "This is where the last human strike team prepared for battle," he said. He walked toward a large ground vehicle, shaped like a tank but built for speed. It still had power, thanks to its self-charging solar core. He carefully loaded the cryopod inside the tank's rear chamber, then looked at Vico. "Once we leave here, there's no coming back," he said. Vico nodded without fear. "I'm with you." Suddenly, the ground rumbled and a deep roar echoed above them. They rushed to a side panel and activated a small camera. In the sky above the mountain, a massive ship had arrived. It was shaped like a long spear with wings of shadow, and its engines cracked the sky with thunder. It began to drop black capsules each. One a soldier, each one death, hundreds of them. Falling from the sky like burning stones, the Guardian didn't panic. He climbed into the vehicle and powered it on. Lights glowed, the engine hummed, and metal doors opened, revealing a long tunnel that led to the surface far away. "Hold on," he said. Vico held onto the rail as the vehicle blasted forward. Vanishing into the darkness, behind them, the mountain shook again. The cryopod pulsed with quiet blue light. Lyra slept on, unaware that her father was fighting the whole galaxy just to keep her alive and somewhere far above, on the enemy ship. The commander of the darkness watched the screen with quiet rage. "The Guardian runs," he hissed, "but he cannot hide for long." The old Earth vehicle roared through the dark underground tunnel. Its wheels were thick, its engine powerful, built for speed and safety. Inside, the Guardian sat at the controls, hands steady, eyes focused. Vico held on tightly as the machine bounced over debris and broken ground in the back compartment. The cryopod hummed softly. Keeping Lyra alive, they had escaped the falling soldiers for now. But the Guardian knew it was only a matter of time before the enemy found them again. He watched the tunnel map on the screen, tracking their route to an old military base. "If that place still has power," he said, "we might be able to send out a stronger signal." Vico looked at him, curious. "Signal to who? To anyone left?" The Guardian replied, "Humans, allies, old machines, even enemies with guilt in their hearts." He paused for a moment, then added, "If we don't find help soon, we won't survive the next wave." Far above them, in the orbit of Earth, dozens of dark ships had arrived. The darkness fleet covered the sky like storm clouds. Each ship had sharp black edges, glowing red eyes, and weapons strong enough to melt cities. Inside the largest ship, the commander stood before a wall of blinking screens. One screen showed Earth's surface the path of the Guardian's vehicle. Another showed the signal being sent into space. "The fool is calling for help," one of the generals said. The commander turned slowly, eyes hidden behind dark glass. "Let him," he growled. "We will silence all who answer, back underground." The Guardian's vehicle finally reached the end of the tunnel. A large metal gate blocked the exit, half covered in dirt and vines. The Guardian stepped out, brushed off the controls, and pulled a heavy lever with a loud hiss and a deep groan. The doors opened, revealing bright sunlight for the first time in days. They were at the edge of a canyon. Below them was a forgotten Earth defense base, built into the cliffs. Crashed ships and broken turrets were scattered around like bones, but the main tower still stood, tall and proud. Even after centuries of silence, the Guardian drove the vehicle down a winding path toward the base. As they approached, motion sensors hidden in the rocks blinked awake. Old machines deep within the base came online, recognizing his signal. A robotic voice echoed through the broken air. "Clearance code. Accepted." "Welcome back, Commander." Doors slid open, and the Guardian drove the vehicle inside. Vico stepped out, looking around in amazement. "This place looks like it hasn't moved in hundreds of years," he said. The Guardian nodded. "It hasn't." He opened the vehicle's back hatch and carefully pulled out the cryopod. He placed it on a power dock connected to the base's core energy system. The lights on the pod turned solid green. Lyra was stable again. He let out a breath he'd been holding for too long. Vico touched one of the control panels. "This place is huge," he said. "Are there more soldiers here?" The Guardian shook his head. "No. They all left or died in the final days. Only this base stayed hidden." He walked into the main control room, wiping dust off the screens. He typed in an old access code and activated the long-range transmitter. The signal tower above the cliffs turned slowly toward the stars, and Then, the Guardian sent a new message. "This is Commander Revik, Guardian of Earth, to any surviving human or ally. Earth is under attack again. My daughter is alive, and I will protect her with my last breath. But I cannot win alone. Come home." The message shot in two. The stars like lightning, it traveled through ancient human networks, bouncing off satellites, space stations, and even abandoned warships across the galaxy. People paused as they heard the voice, tired, deep, and powerful. Some wept, others cursed. And many began to move, but not all answers came from humans. On a mining moon orbiting a dead planet, a group of alien ex-soldiers heard the call. They once fought beside the humans during the Old War. One of them, an old warrior with scars across. His face looked at the message and said, "The Guardian lives." Then he stood and barked, "Prepare the ship. We return to Earth." Back on Earth, Vico stared at the Guardian's face. "Do you really think they'll come?" The Guardian didn't answer. Instead, he turned to the wall, where a photo of his old squad was still hanging. Half of them were gone, but the other half might still be out there. Just then, alarms rang through the base, motion detected. Incoming forces approaching. The Guardian ran to a nearby camera feed and saw the dust rising, another enemy landing force. "They found us," he said. He turned to Vico. "We hold the base, no matter what." Vico grabbed a weapon from a nearby crate, unsure how to use it. The Guardian loaded his own gear-heavy armor, energy blade, shoulder cannon, and a small shield drone outside the base. Dark figures dropped from the sky, armored and glowing red. They marched forward in perfect lines, their eyes locked on the tower. Inside, the Guardian walked over to the cryopod and touched the glass again. "Sleep a little longer," he whispered to Lyra. "I'll keep them away from you." Then he turned toward the main gate, weapons ready. Vico stood beside him, shaking but brave. The Guardian looked at him and said, "You wanted to help." Vico nodded. "Then stand tall." The Guardian said, "This is where legends are made, outside." The sky darkened again, and the battle for Earth was about to begin once more. The sound of metal boots echoed through the canyon as the enemy forces marched toward the old Earth base. The Guardian stood behind the blast doors, watching the camera feeds closely. Dark armored soldiers with red eyes moved in rows, carrying heavy weapons and strange energy blades. The wind blew dust over their black armor, but they kept walking without fear or pause. They had one mission: find the Guardian and kill him before others could join his call. Inside the base, Vico checked the weapon in his hands again. His small fingers shook, but he didn't drop it. He had never fought before, never even held a real gun until today. But he looked at the Guardian, calm, steady, unshaken, and knew he could not run. The Guardian powered up the defense grid. Old turrets hidden in the cliffs came online, rising slowly from the ground. They creaked, sparked, then glowed blue as energy charged inside them. One turret opened. Fire, the first shot slamming into the lead soldier of the enemy line. It exploded into black smoke, but the rest kept coming. "Prepare yourself," the Guardian said to Vico. "This won't be quick." The first wave of enemy troops reached the outer gates. Explosions rocked the walls and dust rained from the ceiling. Inside, alarms blared, and power flickered for a moment. But the Guardian stayed still, watching, learning their attack pattern. Then he moved, fast as lightning. He opened a side door and ran out onto the second level of the wall. With one press of his wrist pad, he activated an energy shield around the base. A dome of glowing light appeared above them, blocking enemy ships from landing directly inside. Vico watched from behind the control panel, heart racing on the screen. He saw more enemy dropships waiting just outside the shield, circling like vultures if the shield fell. They would drop more soldiers in seconds, but just then, something unexpected happened. A new light appeared in the sky, a ship. Not dark like the others, but silver and burning fast. It broke through the clouds and flew straight toward Earth. The Guardian looked up as a voice came through the old radio system. "This is Captain Mira of the Archon fleet, responding to my Guardian Revix signal. We are here." The Guardian allowed himself a small smile. "They're coming," he said quietly. Allies, after all this time, the enemy heard the same signal. And their commander on the ground gave a new order. "Crush the base before reinforcements arrive." With that, the second wave of troops charged. They ran toward the gates with heavy blasters and sharp claws. Ready to tear down everything, the Guardian jumped from the wall and landed right in front of them. His armor lit up with energy, and his blade extended from his wrist with a bright flash. He didn't wait. He charged forward, meeting the enemy head-on. He moved like a storm dodging blasts, striking fast, cutting through armor like paper. Every hit was clean, every step powerful. He fought not for glory, but for survival. For his daughter, for Earth. Vico couldn't believe what he was seeing on the cameras. This wasn't just a soldier. This was a warrior from another age, and he was winning. The enemy didn't expect such resistance. More of them fell. More ships were called, but then more friendly signals started appearing on the radar. Several ships blinked to life, small, medium, even one large cruiser. One by one, voices came through the comms. "This is Corin of the Dustwalkers, Aaron Squad reporting in. Old Guard from Sector 14, we hear you, Guardian." The Guardian heard them all while fighting. He activated a beacon from his armor to guide them to the base. "You came back," he whispered to himself. "You remembered." Meanwhile, Vico ran to the cryopod room to check on Lyra. The pod was glowing brighter now, and the screen said revival process starting. He gasped. "She's waking up," he said. He pressed the button to seal the chamber and add more energy, then rushed back to the main control room to update the Guardian. Outside, ships began landing on cliffs nearby. Allies jumped out, weapons ready. Joining the fight, humans, alien warriors, even old battle droids stepped into the battlefield. For the first time in hundreds of years, Earth was not fighting alone. The Guardian looked around at the growing force. He gave a single order through the open comms. "Defend the base, protect the future." The battle grew louder, the dust thicker, and the skies flashed with light and fire. But hope had returned. Each fighter that arrived made the shield stronger, the defense tighter, the Guardian's resolve. Deeper inside, Vico saw the cryopod open slightly. Steam rising. Lyra's fingers twitched. Her eyes fluttered behind her eyelids. "She's alive," he whispered. "She's coming back." He ran back to the Guardian and shouted over the sound of war, "She's waking up." The Guardian paused only for a second, then nodded. "Then we hold this ground until she can stand again." And as the sun set over the battle-scarred mountains of Earth, the Guardian stood like a wall, his allies beside him, old legends returning, new ones rising, because this time, when the darkness came, humanity was ready. The battle had turned into a storm. Fire lit the skies, and the sound of weapons never stopped. The air was filled with smoke, screams, and the hum of engines. All around the Earth defense base, soldiers fought with everything they had. Humans, aliens, droids, different kinds, but now fighting as one. The Guardian stood at the center of it all. His armor was cracked, his left arm bleeding, but he never stopped. Enemy after enemy came at him, and he kept pushing them back. His blade burned with energy. His fists hit like thunder, but he knew the darkness wouldn't give up so easily. Inside the base, Vico watched the battle from the control room. He saw red dots blinking on the screen. More and more enemies coming. Then, a soft sound behind him made him turn. The cryopod door had opened fully. Steam spilled out, and Lyra slowly blinked her eyes. Her skin was pale, and she looked confused. She tried to sit up, but was too weak. Vico ran to her side and gently helped her. "It's okay," he said. Smiling, "You're safe now." Lyra looked around, trying to speak. "Where? Where am I?" she asked. "You're in an old Earth base." Vico replied, "Your father's here, fighting for you." Tears filled her eyes. "My father," she whispered, "he's alive, back outside." The Guardian heard the message from Vico over his comm. "She's awake." For a moment, everything else disappeared. The pain, the noise, the enemy's et all faded. She was alive, and that was all that mattered. But then the sky turned black again. A sound like a scream echoed from above. The main ship of the darkness had arrived. It was enormous, larger than anything in the sky. Its shadow covered the entire mountain. The ship opened slowly, revealing a weapon one powerful enough to destroy the entire base. The commander stood at the edge of the ship, looking down with cold, glowing eyes. "This ends now," he said. "Bring me the Guardian." The enemy soldiers pulled back, creating a path. And through that path came something massive, a dark war beast, controlled by the commander's mind, covered in metal plates and fire. It roared as it charged toward the base. The Guardian looked at the beast, then at the base behind him. He knew what he had to do. He ran forward alone. Weapons ready. The two forces clashed in a blast of light and sound. He was fast, but the beast was strong. It threw him through walls, smashed the ground, and screamed with rage. But the Guardian always got back up, even when his bones hurt, even when blood poured from his side. He wasn't just fighting a monster, he was fighting for his daughter's future. Inside, Lyra was getting stronger. She sat up fully now, holding Vico's hand. She could hear the sounds outside and knew her father was out there. "I want to see him," she said. Vico tried to stop her, but she stood anyway, legs shaking. "He came back for me. Now I have to go to him." Meanwhile, the Guardian had climbed onto the beast's back. He drove his blade deep into its neck. Cutting wires and circuits, the beast screamed and tried to shake him off, but he held tight. One final strike, he plunged his weapon into the core. The beast exploded in fire and smoke. The blast threw the Guardian across the battlefield. He landed hard, rolling until he stopped near the edge of a cliff. He didn't move, not right away. Everything was spinning, and his body felt broken. Then he heard Ida's voice, soft and trembling. "Dad." He looked up, and there she was, Lyra, standing in the middle of the battlefield. Her eyes wide and full of tears, she ran to him and dropped to her knees. "Don't die, please," she cried. He smiled weakly, blood on his lips. "You're safe," he whispered. "That's all I ever wanted." Vico came running, ducking past falling debris and fire. He reached them and helped lift the Guardian into a safer spot. But above them, the main ship began charging its super weapon. The commander's voice rang out. "If I cannot kill the Guardian, I will destroy everything around him." The Guardian coughed and looked up at the sky. He pressed a button on his wrist, activating a hidden core deep in the base, a secret weapon built during the last war but never used, an ancient cannon buried in the cliffs. "Began to rise, target locked," said the robotic voice from the base. The Guardian looked at Vico and Lyra. "Get inside," he said. "But no," he said firmly. "This is my final shot." Lyra kissed his forehead, her tears falling on his cheek. "Come back to me," she said. He nodded, but said nothing. They ran inside, and the Guardian stood alone once again. He synced his armor with the cannon, using his life energy to guide the final shot. The sky burned with fire as the enemy ship prepared to fire. But the Guardian was faster. He aimed, he locked on, and he whispered one last thing for Earth. The cannon fired, a beam of pure light cutting through the sky. It struck the enemy ship directly in the core. The entire vessel exploded in silence, flames dancing in the air like stars. And when the smoke cleared, the Guardian was gone. Only his armor remained, glowing gently at the edge of the cliff. But his name would never be forgotten, because in that moment the galaxy remembered what humans were, and what they could still become. Smoke floated in the sky like silent clouds. The battlefield was quiet now. Where once there was fire and screams, now there was only wind and ash. The massive ship of the darkness had been destroyed. Its pieces rained down across the mountains, burning bright before fading into silence. Soldiers from many worlds stood still, looking up. The last shot fired from the ancient Earth cannon had ended the war, but at a great cost, at the edge of the cliff. The Guardian's armor remained. It lay cracked and glowing, a soft blue light. Shining from its chest, there was no body, no blood, only silence. The man who had once protected Earth had vanished, but all who saw knew what he had done. Inside the base, Lyra knelt on the floor, holding the helmet of her father. Her eyes were red from crying, her hands trembling. She had lost him again, but this time he had chosen to protect her with his final breath. Vico stood nearby, silent, watching the monitors slowly turn off one by one. The war was over, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like the end of a story that had waited too long to be told. The base was filled with survivors, now humans, aliens, droids, soldiers from every corner of the galaxy. They had come to help, and now they had stayed to mourn in the main hall. They gathered around a screen playing the Guardian's final message. This is Commander Revik. If you hear this, then I have done my duty. Protect Earth. Protect each other. Never forget who we are. His voice echoed across the room, deep and calm. Tears rolled down many faces, even those who had never met him, because in that moment, they all felt the weight of his sacrifice. Outside, workers began cleaning up the battlefield. Pieces of broken ships were collected. Wounded soldiers helped into medpods. A flag was raised, half black, half blue, the symbol of Earth's last defense. It fluttered in the wind, high above the base. Lyra stood in front of the flag, her father's helmet in her hands. I will carry your name, she said softly. I will not let your story fade in the weeks that followed. Something began to change across the galaxy. The signal of the Guardian's final battle had spread everywhere. People who once hated each other began to talk. Old enemies sent peace messages. Forgotten colonies reached out. A new alliance began to form, not of power, but of memory. At the center of it all was Earth. A planet once lost, now full of life again. Engineers arrived to rebuild the cities. Farmers returned to grow food in the soil that still remembered. Children laughed in the ruins, their voices rising like music. And in orbit, a new structure began to take shape, a monument unlike anything before. It was built from stone, steel, and the remains of the Guardian's armor. A massive statue of Revik, standing tall, his blade in one hand and his daughter's symbol in the other. It didn't look like a hero. It looked like a man, tired, strong, and full of heart. Below the monument were words carved in many languages. He protected what was lost and made us remember what we could be. Lyra became a leader, not by force, but by memory. She led with kindness and courage, always carrying the lessons of her father. Vico stayed by her side, now older, now stronger, now proud. Together, they helped guide a new era, an age of peace, of rebuilding, of hope. Sometimes, when the wind was quiet and the stars were bright, Lyra would stand outside the base, looking up at the sky. She would place her hand over her heart and whisper, I miss you, and far away. In places beyond space, where time didn't move the same, some believed the Guardians still existed. Not dead, but resting, watching, waiting, ready to return. If ever Earth called his name again, legends were told, stories passed on. Children grew up hearing about the man who stood alone against the darkness. The man who didn't run, who didn't break, the Guardian of Earth, who gave everything for love and duty in every corner of the galaxy. People remembered, not because of fear, but because of hope. And as light returned to Earth, as cities grew, and the stars grew brighter, one thing became clear to all who looked up at the sky: the Guardian had fallen, but Earth had risen again, and this time it would never fall so easily again.